Hey everyone. I'm going to actually I know I don't do a ton of individual book reviews, although this is something I think I'm going to branch out and try to do more of. Part of the problem is, I don't read as many physical books as I do ebooks. I often am like, I don't want to just sit at a table and talk about one particular book. And if I don't have the book, it's kind of awkward. But I am, as we move into 2024, I'm trying to actually clear out a lot of my physical books, at least read them and then decide if I want to keep them or, sell them or offload them somewhere. So, a couple things, so that's kind of where I'm at. But, sometimes I do like to do reviews, especially if it's like a 5-star read or for some particular reason I think it's a book, that's either just come out or really relevant. And like I said, I'm going to try to do more, I think, individual book reviews as well. But this one I wanted to do because it is timely. It's a holiday-themed book. And so it's not a new book. It's been out several years now. And the book is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia. This is a YA novel. And generally, it's been sitting on my Kindle for a while. And it's the kind of book I downloaded just because I knew it was like a holiday book. And I was like, I'll read it around the holidays. And I just haven't. And so this year I was like, okay, I'll read it. As I've mentioned before, I love A Christmas Carol. I love any version of A Christmas Carol. And so this is sort of a YA modern retelling of A Christmas Carol with a little bit of a twist. And so, I loved this book. And I can't say enough about how good this book was. So we're going to go into it. All right. So basically the story here is you have this rich, spoiled girl, who's, your Scrooge character, and her stepmother has recently died. She lives in Hollywood. Her dad's a filmmaker, and, basically, and her mom was in fashion, and they just, as her stepmom, so she is visited by the 3 ghosts and early on, and she basically ridicules it and thinks it's nonsense. And she's like, I didn't do anything wrong and I'm not changing my ways, kind of. And she's very insufferable at first, even in its first person narration. It is, like I said, it's YA. And so at first I was like, oh, she's so irritating. But again, that's knowing, going into it, she's going to be irritating. The twist here is that she dies pretty quickly. So because she doesn't learn her lesson like Scrooge. And then in the afterlife, she is actually hired to become the ghost of Christmas past for what's called the Scrooge Project. And so she moves to New York City, which helps because I think New York City, especially in like holiday settings, is just such a good like holiday vibe. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a Northeast girl, but I love New York around the holiday. I love New York anyway, but especially around the holidays, just very good for like getting you in the spirit of Christmas. So she works for this Scrooge Project, and basically annually they pick Scrooge, and they spend all year, finding the Fezziwig and finding the Marley and, the different characters in this individual's life who represent the characters from A Christmas Carol. And then, on Christmas Eve, they go through the Christmas Carol story and try to save the person's life, essentially. And it's far-fetched and silly. And early on, I was like, okay, this is silly. It's cutesy. And then, this particular year, that it's been a few years she's been doing this. And this particular year, their Scrooge is a young guy her age, ish. She died at 17. So she's in her early 20s at this point, and the guy's 18 or 17. So, they're basically the same age, except she's a ghost, so she's not really, but so there's like a little bit, she thinks he's cute, and there's a little romance there, and I'm not a romance person, but I love this book so much that afterwards I was like, oh, I'm going to read romance, and then I went off and read like a really popular romance writer, and I'll talk about this in my monthly wrap-up, and I was like, nope, I'm not a romance person, it's still not for me. But I do really I love Dash and Lily's Book of Dares. I like Anna and the French Kiss. I like cutesy YA romance. I don't really like romance subplots in fantasy. I don't like it in most of my books, but it worked here. I thought it was cute. So, but I think one of the things about this story is that the romance is a key part of the plot, but it's not a romance novel. It's very much a Christmas Carol novel. It's a bit of a coming of age, kind of coming to terms with herself. It's a holiday story. It's about becoming a better person, recognizing, the people in your life and the things that you have and appreciating those things. It was funny. It was cute. I could not stop. I couldn't put this down. I read this in, I think, a day, and I didn't want to stop reading. And as soon as I was done with the book, I wanted to reread it. I'm going to definitely buy a copy of it. It's probably going to now be on my favorite books of all time kind of list. I loved it. And it's not the kind of book I normally would go for. So I definitely want to recommend this book, because even if it's not your kind of thing, if you're open to something kind of cute and maybe outside your comfort zone, but that has a pretty solid story, especially if you like the Christmas Carol story. And, if you want something in the holiday spirit, it's fun, it's light, but it's not so light that it's empty and meaningless. And it's written, it's not going to change your life, the writing, but it's pretty solid writing. The storytelling's good. The characters are interesting. You actually look forward to spending time with the characters. And I'll say, there were some twists throughout the book. It actually had a little bit of, had some surprises. Most of them I saw coming to some degree. I wasn't 100% sure on, but, you could definitely feel some of them coming. But one of the things I really liked about this book in particular is that I thought, going in, there were some twists, but I had a pretty good sense of, what the ultimate ending of the story would be. And while some of that was the case, there were parts that actually surprised me, and I thought definitely took a different route than I would have anticipated. And in a good way. Again, I tend to like really dark, twisted, miserable fiction. And so this is way out there for me as far as a recommendation, especially if you look at my favorite books of all time, the books that I've given 5 stars, the books I review. I really generally am not going to be hey, here's this cute, fun book. But it's that good. I really, really loved it. And I'm going to make this an annual read around the holidays, or at least every couple of years. It's just so fun. And I loved it so much. And I think in the spirit of the season, I wanted to share it. I wanted to talk about it. I will include it in my wrap up as well, but I really wanted to get this out there as soon as possible to be hey, I did read it last week, but I just can't stop thinking about how much I loved it. And, I'm always excited when a book kind of takes me outside of my normal genre or my normal type of book. But in particular, it was very satisfying. This was a book that really satisfied me, really hit at the right moment. I don't know. If I read it in June, would I love it as much? Probably, because I love Christmas Carol, but it definitely is something that, helps for the season too. So anyway, again, The Afterlife of Holly Chase. Go check it out. I'd love to know what you thought. If you've read it, let me know what you thought of it. And yeah, if you're willing to go out on a limb, I think you might be pleasantly surprised. All right. Bye.